Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Social Media and Your Practice, produced by iCare Pro and Review of Optometric Business. I'm Roger Mummert, Content Director for Review of Optometric Business. In the next hour, we'll hear from several experts in social media on how you can build your practice brand and stay top of mind with your patients while reaping benefits for your practice. We have several presenters today. From iCare Pro, we have Evan Engel, Vice President of Sales and Marketing. We also have with us Zvi Pardes, Head of Content Marketing. You probably know Zvi from the many iCare Pro videos. And also we'll hear from the optometric community from Dr. Nicholas Balil, who practices in Clio, Michigan. Dr. Balil is a graduate of the Michigan College of Optometry at Ferris State University. He's a solo practitioner of full-service optometry with medical model specialties that include ortho-K and myopia management, diabetes management, and pediatrics, among other services. And now, to welcome us and take us through some of the fundamentals of social media and your practice, please welcome Evan Engel.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Evan. Thank you, Roger, for the nice introduction. You are joining me not only for a webinar, but also on my 35th birthday. So happy birthday to me. So today we're going to be discussing social media. And so the average patient of yours is spending, the average US adult is spending 74 minutes a day on social media. So it's obvious to see that as a massive opportunity to just be where your patients or potential patients' eyeballs are at. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper, probably if you want to look at your patient base or potential patient base and who's the real target or the ideal target, it's going to be women between the age of 30 and 64. They're going to influence usually the household decision. They'll have kids, so it's usually going to result in more appointments per engagement, and they are also bigger optical spenders. And so whenever we're discussing any marketing activity, you want to hone in to one thing at a time and do that really well before you take on too many things. And so the first question is just what social media platform is the best one to focus your attention on first. And so it's very clear that Facebook is still in the lead. 58% of 30 to 49-year-old women in the US are daily users of Facebook, and 50% of 50 to 64-year-olds. Now, that number isn't as low as you might imagine for men, but just the sheer volume of potential patients in your city are on Facebook every single day. Instagram is a distant second, with 30% of women between the age of 30 and 49. So if you were going to choose a second platform to focus on, that would be the ideal second platform. Whenever you talk about any marketing initiative, the first thing you want to look at is just how much time you're going to spend on this initiative, how much money you're going to spend on an initiative, and how much that's going to result in terms of results for the practice. Every single practice I've ever talked to, so this is a stat that I think I'm pretty solidly convinced about, is that 100% of practices have limited time and resources. I've yet to meet a practice that comes on and talks to me and says, you know, we have unlimited resources, what can we do? And so it always needs to be put in a framework of what should I be spending on my time and money on based on my limited time and resources. And so it's, you know, even though this is definitely a webinar about social media, you should always take into consideration is if you're not there when people are actively looking for eye care, you're not showing up with good Google reviews. So I would take a step back and maybe reconsider why it is that you want to do social media. Is it because it's the right thing for you to do today, or is it because you're excited about it? But really, for our 1,800 practices that we work with, 90% of new patient growth is going to come from Google. And so social media comes when a practice does the basics right. They're showing up when people are looking, and then they're looking for the next step of their marketing. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything with social media, but every decision has to just be put into that framework. And so with that in mind, what we've done here today is kind of create a structure where there are basically 4 types of practices. And the 4 types of practices are practices that have different amounts of time and energy that they can spend on social media, and as well as that they should spend on social media. And so the 4 types of stages of practices are: stage 1 is a practice that we'll call outsourcing, which is nowadays you can't afford not to have a social media presence, just because then you really just don't look like a business that's even there. But we're calling them the outsourcing model, where you need to have some kind of presence, but it's really not something that the practice with your limited time, limited energy should be spending your time on. Maybe it's a practice that isn't showing up and they have more work that they can be doing on Google reviews, on content on their website and things like that. And maybe it's just a practice with very limited resources. Maybe they show up very well, but they have very limited resources. And that's the first stage. The second stage is for a practice that is ready to really take a plunge to do more on social media that's going to be advanced and effective. We're calling that document Don't Create. And this is the first step of creating content for social media that's going to be effective. It's not as big of a time commitment or energy commitment from the practice. However, it's really that first stage of doing content that is going to be effective. The third step is going to require a lot more time and energy on the behalf of the practice, called expanding. And that's where you're taking, not only are you doing a lot of documentation of what's going on in the practice and creating content that's good for social media, but it's where you're starting to leverage that content and expand your reach outwards to additional audiences and starting to really build the value of your social media presence. And the last step is social practice, which is a practice that does everything really well at the base level. Maybe they have a full-time marketing person at the practice. Maybe they have an agency level marketing company working with them. And that's where you can really do advanced things on social media. And we're going to look at each one and really kind of use Dr. Belil as an example of some of them, but also talk about what would be part of the strategy at each step, so that a practice at the first level can walk away from this presentation with some ideas of what they can start doing, a practice at the second level, third level, and fourth level. So the first stage is outsourcing. And this is an example of iCarePro's automated tool called Get Set Campaign. And what we have are around 600 different campaigns covering topics, every topic from products to promotions to seasonal topics, medical topics, new contact lenses, specialty care. And the idea here is that you're basically outsourcing the effort that would need to be done by the practice to create a Facebook strategy that is at the bare minimum showing that you're an active business. It's going to take advantage of some of the topics that are effective, and it's going to slowly, without too much energy and time of the practice, build an audience. The kinds of topics that you would want to cover for any practice. So you have seasonal topics. You can't miss out on Use It or Lose It or Back to School, Dry Eye during the winter, UV during the summer. Those are topics that are going to be relevant. You got Mother's Day, Father's Day. Those are seasonal things, topics that are just going to work during the right time of the year. Then you have promotions. Every practice has sales, events, trunk shows, those kinds of things. And a good marketing calendar from an outsourcing perspective is to just realize, like, what are the topics that you should definitely cover. So every practice should definitely cover Use It or Lose It for a couple of months, and then even in the new year, renewed benefits. And every practice should do Back to School, but promotions as well. Now you have products, so everything from vitamins for AMD to dry eye products to new transition contact lenses, frames, that kind of thing. And then you have education, talking to patients about things like the importance of blue light protection, or the importance of managing the progression of myopia. Those are topics that each practice is going to have a little bit of a different focus, but there's a lot of education that you want to get out, that's important to get out. I would say that messaging shouldn't necessarily only be on your social media platform. It could be emails, in-office material as well, but definitely should have an ongoing messaging and marketing calendar that's geared towards covering those messaging. Now, in addition to that like marketing calendar that you're creating, which would be seasonal, promotional, product related, and education, you also want to have an ongoing like share campaign. And the idea is that while you're not actively working hard on making social media the priority of growing your business at this stage, you you still want to prepare yourself for the future, and you want to start building an audience. A like share campaign is pretty simple. It's like, share, or check in on our Facebook page for a chance to win something. It could be a $5 gift certificate. It could be a giveaway. This particular practice, Complete Eye Care, they reach out to their reps and they ask them if they have anything that they can contribute to their like share campaigns on a monthly basis. And what that does is that builds up your audience on an ongoing basis. At the second stage is now really getting into kind of the meat and potatoes of this presentation, because this is really where a practice can start doing a lot more with their social platform. And that's based on the understanding that everything we've talked about right now is about getting out messaging so you don't look like you're not in existence, so you're making sure you're getting out the right messages, but it's not really the ideal content for social media. People don't go to Facebook to engage in dry eye content. People primarily are looking for people, right? That's why it's called social media. And so the idea of Document Don't Create is about creating content that really resonates or in sync with the kind of content that is going to get engagement on social platforms. So on the right-hand side, Dr. Balil's practice has a cute picture of a baby, and if there's one true statement that I could ever make is everyone loves babies. And then on the left side, you have a local principal who came in, and but the idea here is you're documenting your patients. An average practice sees 300 patients a month. Every patient, whether they're young or old, has friends, families, cousins, relatives that live in the city, and showcasing that patient is just an easy way to do the kind of content that is effective on social media. It shows that you have like a great relationship with your patients, and it also leverages your social platform to reach out to a broader audience and start creating engagement with your community. Dr. Balil, are you on with the audio?
Yes.
Okay, so here I noticed one thing. So Dr. Balil, we chose Dr. Balil because he's a very nice guy, but also because he's kind of in the middle of different stages. So he's definitely not on stage one of the outsourcing, but he is kind of somewhere in between stage 2 and stage 3. But one of the questions I have here is tell me a little bit about these posts that you have here are really leveraging the people that you have in the post to talk about a specific topic. You got back to school at the principal, and you got the baby with infancy. So could you tell me who gave you that idea? How did you come up with that? And just share a little bit about the experience of documenting the patients in your practice.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me and featuring me on this. I appreciate it, but I don't know if anybody specifically told me about either of these things per se. It's just been something I've learned through experience and trial and error with doing Facebook posts for years now. As far as I've found that many people do not respond to just basic IFAKs. So if I did a post that just had a graphic about infancy and it was just informational, people are very unlikely to interact with that in any way. And then Facebook will tell you how many views that each post gets. And so you can see, oh, this one didn't have very many views. Whereas if you try and interject the educational information with a personal side, as in both these scenarios of attaching the picture of the cute baby and the local school principal, then people are way more likely to engage in that. And really, both these scenarios weren't pre-planned. The infancy one is actually my front desk receptionist. That's her daughter. And so that was an easy one to just ask and say, hey, we're done doing this. Why don't we snap a photo and we'll post it. And then for the principal one, she was a new patient that came in early August, and she was a very pleasant woman, and I thought she was pretty good natured, and it just kind of popped in my head of, oh, this is back to school season. This is a principal. She's getting her back to school exam. And I just asked her, would she mind doing this? She said, no, not at all. And so again, just had my assistant snap a quick photo, and then we have it posted by the end of the day. And and again, both these had very good reactions as far as total likes and views and things like that. And so then we use that feedback to then, you know, to tell us what works well in the future. But I'm the person at our office who makes our posts. I just do it on my phone. I might take the picture myself or have an assistant take it and text or email it to me, and then I upload it because I like having control over what the message is that we're getting out there.
So one thing that I often hear is doctors are a little concerned, maybe, you know, patients are not going to respond well to the concept of getting photographed. Has that been your experience at all?
No, I'd say most people are pretty up for it. And it's probably, you know, the same age range that is, you know, the same person who's maybe more likely to be out there taking a selfie doing something. You know, that person generally doesn't have any qualms about having their picture taken and shared out there. And so probably somebody who's more of a, you know, senior citizen maybe would be more hesitant, and I may be more, you know, or less likely to ask them or put them on the spot. But for the most part, I mean, generally it's going to be anybody from age 18 to, you know, 65 or so.
Doctor,
And
Evan, I have a question in for both of you. I think, Doctor, you know, Kelly Baker would like to know how often you post on Facebook, and Evan, what would you say is the recommendation for making, you know, for frequency?
I'll let Dr. Below start.
I try and post about once a day at the most, unless something comes up that's, you know, some announcement we need to make about closing early or something like that. I try not to pummel people with posts because I think all this stuff you can just, if you use social media yourself, you can just take it from the approach of, you know, how do you respond? You know, if you like a page and then the next hour there's 10 posts from that page, you know, are you going to unfollow that page or keep with it? So I generally try and do one. I use the scheduling feature on Facebook where you can go in there and you could plan ahead, you know, for the next how many ever days you want. Okay, I want to schedule this one's going to post on this day and time, and this one this day and time, this one this day and time, and then you've kind of got it all set. I usually have it post early in the morning, like with the thought that a lot of people, you know, check their phone when they're kind of getting ready and getting going. More likely to do it on weekdays than weekends. That seem to work the best for me.
Great.
Dr.
So
Belio, yeah,
Oh,
Roger
sorry.
Mummert here. I just wanted to ask, I think it's great that you've got the faces of your patients in, and I would get a real kick out of seeing my old elementary school principal in shorts and a t-shirt. I think that's terrific that you've really put those in the infancy in terms of an infant undergoing that. Why do you have a release form, a social media release form, and how do you approach patients about getting them to sign something that indicates their permission to post?
At this point, we've just gotten verbal permission, and so we don't have a written release form.
Okay.
So yeah, so regarding the question of how often to post, I think Dr. Belil really put it out there very well, which is as often as people would find not annoying, right? The last thing you want to do on any platform, anywhere, whether it's your website, Facebook, is to be inconsistent with the user intent. And that's the idea of really doing a good job on social, is just to be there in a way that doesn't bother people, in a way that actually is pleasurable to people. So seeing your local principal or seeing a cute baby is going to be great content. Having a video of somebody talking about something interesting or, you know, something funny is going to be great. There is a consideration in terms of volume of posts, which is that the Facebook algorithm is going to show around 6% of your total likes, the post that you post. But that's also going to depend a little bit on how much engagement you have from the likes that you have. So if you post too much, you're going to have low engagement, and then Facebook's going to lower that percent. And if you post just the right amount, they might raise that percent. And then depending on the type of content, if it's video, it will be shown more. So you want to experiment a little bit with it. And you also want to just take into consideration that it's also a time consideration, is what's worth your time and effort. You know, there's all kinds of things to think about, and it's not necessarily one size fits all when it comes to posting on the social. Going on, the idea of document, don't create extends beyond your patients. I mean, obviously your patients are a great way to document, don't create, but you also have staff at your practice. And I think that documenting the staff has a dual purpose. Number one, they're also people in your community. So that's a great thing. But number two is it does show a nice side of the practice, which is, you know, you're not just the doctor, you're also the whole, you know, the whole business. And so highlighting the staff is a great way to connect to that person's friends and family in the community, but it's also a way to kind of brand the practice as kind of a practice that cares about the people within. And so we can see here that this post by one of the practices that I used to manage is it got amazing 190 reactions on a just a regular organic social post for a practice is pretty incredible. And that's definitely way beyond their average. And that's because that person has interacted with hundreds and hundreds of clients over the thousands of patients over those 10 years. And those people are happy for that staff member. So things like documenting work anniversaries or birthdays. I just saw a recent practice post, one of their staff members got engaged and they had a video of the proposal. And just like life events is a great way to document your staff as part of your social media strategy. Another thing that is just really cool about social media is it's a way to engage your staff. And often your staff are people who spend a lot of time on social media. This practice did a post about National Creamsicle Day. I don't know that existed until I saw this post. But they've empowered their staff to be fun with their social media platform. And just come up with cool ideas and unique ideas and let it go kind of where they enjoy it. And it builds up a kind of atmosphere at the practice, which is kind of empowering and enjoyable to work there, and also showcases that to potential patients and to your community. And so they come up with all kinds of wild stuff that they do, this particular practice. And this is just one example, but that's a really interesting example.
Evan,
Dr. Belil,
I just want to circle back to an issue that Roger raised, and a number of people have sent in a question for, and that's about media release and HIPAA. And we actually, as a company, take HIPAA pretty conservatively, and we do recommend that anytime you're putting a patient image up, you use a media release form. And I've just put that in the chatter where you can get a generic one you can all download and use for your practice.
Absolutely. So ICARE is HIPAA compliant as a company, and we definitely always recommend to practices to take HIPAA pretty seriously. So when it comes to sharing and documenting the going-ons in the practice, so it's not just about the staff, it's not just about the patients, but people want to see kind of the back end of what's going on behind the scenes of your practice. You're a local business, you're people, you're interesting inherently. You know, I saw this post by Dr. Belil that he went to Badlands National Park, and to be honest, I was like, I want to ask him about that because that was just a few days ago. How was it?
It was great.
and how did you come up with that concept of really, you know, this is nothing to do with optometry at all. This is really just about you and your own personal life, but you're sharing that on your business page. Is that a new thing? Have you done that for a while? And have you got any feedback on that?
It's something I've done off and on for a while, and just sort of taking from the feedback of, you know, I have pictures of my kids up in the office, like in the exam rooms, and people will comment on those pictures in my exam room all the time, you know, wanting to know how old they are, or, you know, their names, or, you know, comment, you know, that they're cute or they're growing, and because they remember the different picture from the year before, and so I just kind of took that the next step of, well, if people enjoy seeing printed pictures of our kids or family photos when they're here in the office, then I'm sure they would, you know, like occasionally seeing some online. And so, but this post was mainly to twofold, just that trying to generate some engagement of knowing people are much more likely to engage in a photo like this than, you know, fact about glaucoma. But then also just sneaking in the information of, you know, for anybody who called last week and I was out of the office, this is why, and then I'm back now. So if anybody needs to get something taken care of, then now's the time to do it.
And by the way, you
I mean,
your family's wearing protective eyewear there out in the Badlands, I see.
Yes.
Statement?
So really, this is just a very good example of being just a practice that does a very good job of documenting the patients, documenting the doctor's life in a very effective way. You can see that the engagements that he has and the likes and shares and stuff like that is amazing for a relatively smaller you know, city, and definitely just, you know, you're doing a great job of documenting the patient experience, documenting your experience, and giving a little taste of behind the scenes of your life and your practice. So I think you do a fantastic job of documenting. What kind of camera do you use, Dr. Belil?
You know, these are just the personal cameras of either myself or my wife. I have an iPhone. She has a Galaxy. And it was actually my wife who put together that collage for me and probably took many of those photos as well. And so, and she's kind of my inside guru as well, as far as if I have an idea of something we're going to post, and commonly I'll run it by her because she falls in the demographic of female between, you know, 30 and 50. So most likely to use Facebook, and if she gives a thumbs up that it'd be something that she would find enjoyable or likely to engage with, and it's okay, well, then I'll post it. But for the most part, most of our posts are about either something I am doing or have done, whether it's a professional achievement like getting an article published, or whether or not it's being in the community like at a career day, or our staff, you know, if they get a certification, or like you mentioned before, their birthdays, their work anniversaries, or something silly like 4th of July, we all wear, you know, like goofy patriotic Uncle Sam sunglasses. And so I would say, as far as putting pictures of patients out there, is something that I don't do real often, and partly because of the issues with HIPAA and trying to get them to sign a form and things like that. And, you know, wondering if that's maybe where they get kind of uncomfortable of them having to sign this written release or things like that. And so.
Okay, great. Another way to document and not create, but document in a way that's a little bit more effective, is just realizing that there are always these trends that happen. And when a trend happens, it's just a good way, like Dr. Belil said, that he checks in with his wife who falls into the demographic, and would basically give him feedback if this is something that would resonate with his audience. So a craze on social media, like the 10-year, you know, how you're going to look in 10 years, is a great example of just something that people are currently showcasing that they're interested in, and therefore you know that that's something that will resonate probably with the audience. You can think back to the ice bucket challenge as well as a good example for just a craze that people are going to kind of engage in because that's what people are doing. But one thing that I really liked about what Dr. Belil does as well in documenting is that he doesn't only document through photographs, but he also documents content, I believe, that he sees elsewhere and that he finds interesting, and he thinks that his patient base would find interesting. Jokes, local news, posts from other businesses are all great examples of if you're engaging in content and you find something that you think people will find interesting. So you don't need to sit there and create everything. You don't need everything to be a picture. It really all has to fall in at this stage within the context of it's something that people would find interesting on social media. Dr. Belil, how do you get any feedback from patients on the jokes that you share?
The most direct feedback I get is through my wife and staff when they see the posts, and then going by likes and shares or comments. But yeah, just like you said, I follow pages like ODs on Facebook, or just some other ones that I've come across, or Facebook has suggested to me that, you know, will commonly share this type of content, and that's part of what social media is you know, finding content that you find interesting or funny, and then passing it on, sharing it to your own page. And so, but yeah, so a lot of the content, like you said, isn't something I'm creating from scratch, because I'm in the 100% that has limited time and resources.
Absolutely. So once you expand out of that stage of documenting the things that are going on in the practice, the content that you think your patients would find interesting, that you interact with, or your staff interacts with, or your own life, or the what's happening behind the scenes, the next stage is to say, okay, I have all this content that I'm putting up, but are there ways that I can spend a little more time to make it more effective? Can I expand my audience a little bit more? And this is definitely something that would be kind of a next stage, because it does take more time and energy. Usually this is going to be like a certain staff member that you'll have kind of take control or leadership of this project, but there are a whole bunch of things that you can do to expand your reach on social media beyond just creating good content for social media. The first thing is just going to be videos. And video is really very similar to photos, and the same concepts apply, meaning you're still going to videotape the same kinds of things, just that video happens to be much more effective on social in terms of getting out there for people to engage in. Video is a little bit more engageable, and therefore Facebook is going to be more likely to show it to people, and people are going to be more likely to share it. And video basically takes two main ways. It's either you upload a video to Facebook in which it auto plays, or you do a Facebook Live event, which is by far the more effective way, but definitely a little bit more difficult, because you have to kind of do it when you're live. One way that a lot of practices will focus on when it comes to video is going to be in the realm of specialty care, and that's because you're starting to get into a message that is a little bit more advanced. You do want your patients to retain it, and therefore it's important that that content is retained, and video is just much better at conveying messages that are a little bit more complex than just this is a happy patient and this is a cute kid and this is my vacation, where you want them to walk away with a little bit of something that they remember. And so documenting like a patient experience with specialty care would be something that we see a lot for our practices through video. Just as a kind of like a tip, insider tip, and this goes within the whole idea of expanding your reach with video, 85% of Facebook videos are watched without sound. And so if you are going to use video, the recommended way of doing it is to create edited text that's embedded in the video. Definitely not posting like a YouTube video, because that is just going to be a link that clicks out and nobody wants to leave the platform that they're on. And so as a just a piece of advice, if you want to do something like that, capwing.com is a great free tool to do things like create embedded text and create this title that's built into your videos, that people, when they're scrolling down their Facebook feed, you're gonna catch their eye a little bit more. Capwing is a pretty cool tool because it also allows you to create memes. It also allows you to resize for different platforms. So as a free tool, obviously I don't really recommend doctors to spend a lot of time on this, because I think there are things that they can do that's going to add more value. But if you have a staff member that's interested in getting more involved in your social strategy, this would be something that is definitely recommended when it comes to social video. We talked about specialty care videos a second ago, and Dr. Sarai from Village Eye Care in Chicago has a tremendous amount of videos of his patients' experience with scleral lenses. And this is really just a great example of what's called social proof. Social proof is that when something is a little bit more technical, a little bit more life-changing, a little bit more expensive, a little bit more important, it's more effective to have other people talk about it than the doctor themselves. I mean, the doctor can as well, but you really want to have a mix-up. And your patient's experience with scleral lenses or with vision therapy is going to be really powerful a lot of times. Like a mother talking about their child's experience with vision therapy can really be impactful to other people's decisions. And I had a doctor tell me about a mother's group that was in their community, and the mom had posted a video talking about her child's experience with Ortho-K, and that led to appointments coming in because of this idea of social proof. And so video is just a very dynamic way on social to engage with people, and it's a very effective way, especially when it comes to like a little bit more advanced topics. When you are wanting to expand the reach of your post, so you can also tag posts. Tagging can be done, you can tag individuals, so you can tag your staff members, you can tag the person that you took a photo of, you can also tag other local businesses, and this is just a way to expand your reach organically without spending money on ads or anything like that. It's pretty simple to do, and just it's an easy win in a sense. There are a couple of different tags that you can use. So there's topical tags. So Dr. Balil's post, if you saw before, they have some topical tags there. So topical tags are a way that somebody else can see you if they're looking for something. So Twitter is a social media platform. Twitter is either the second or third most used search engine in the world, after Google and probably YouTube second. And the reason is because a lot of people are looking for, they might be looking for best colleges, or they might be looking for the best, Vietnamese food. And if you're tagging your content in that way, you'll be shown when somebody's looking for something to do with optician's life or, learning. The problem with a topical tag like that is that it's non-localized, so you're not necessarily going to be seen just by people in your community, but it is a way to kind of get more exposure. Another kind of tag that's very effective is anything local. So if you have a local like high school, local college, a local sporting event, a local fair or something like that, or something local that's going on. So that tag is a local tag, but it's going to be a little bit more effective at expanding your reach into local events. And then another thing that's sometimes a great way to get more exposure is just trending topics. So let's say a movie just came out, that would be probably a popular tag if it was a very popular movie. Or any topic, you can also search online and find what are the trending tags right now on different social platforms, and that can be a way to expand your reach to things that people are looking for. When you have somebody who likes any of your posts, they don't necessarily like your page, and so they're not going to continue seeing content that you post. And so what you do is you can actually click on those likes and then invite them to like your page. That's an easy way to expand your reach to new people to see your posts on an ongoing basis. Once again, it's part of the third stage of expanding your reach and just using some of these like tips to leverage the content that you're creating to build an audience. Whenever you're setting up a post, there are a couple of ideas that you just want to try to incorporate. One of them is just having a catchy title. Another is to make sure your descriptions are robust. There isn't really a length that you have to fit in, but the stats show very clearly that not having a description that's that's not the ideal, and you definitely want to have a longer description rather than a shorter description. And then you want to have some way to follow through, either a phone number, a link to your website, an email address, a hashtags, that like, or an Instagram account, whatever it is that you have. But you definitely want to have like the next step so that they don't need to go ahead and try to find how to contact you. It depends on the type of, if it's a comedy post, then I don't know if that's as important. But if you're sharing a post about scleral lenses, you'd want to link that back to a scleral lens page, and you would want to have a phone number that is easy for the patient to take a next step. After you've kind of leveraged the content that you're created video content, now it's time to really talk about, well, what's the ultimate step, or what a practice that really is firing on all cylinders, really leveraging their social media presence? What would they look like? What are some of the things that are a little bit more advanced that you could do, your staff could do, to really take your social presence to a higher level? And so we call this a social practice. So the first thing is to realize that Facebook is just one platform, and most people are not going to go off of the platform that they're used to being on. And so, for example, I spend my time on Facebook, and my wife spends her time on YouTube, and my brother spends his time on Twitter, and my mom spends her time on Instagram and a little bit on Facebook. Now, my brother's also a little bit on Facebook, but really most of his time is not. And so when you start, when you're creating content anyway, you're able to kind of say, well, if I have somebody on staff that's more focused on social, I can start looking at other platforms. I would definitely recommend that the second platform that you go to would be Instagram. Twitter is more of a global platform. YouTube is an amazing platform if you're talking about specialty care and something that's more informational, a little bit more technical. But Instagram really is a great platform for optical. The demographic on Instagram is definitely going to be more fashion focused, women, focused, younger demographic, but also first of all, Instagram is growing at extremely high rates, and businesses do very well in Instagram. If you wanted to say the second step for an optometry practice that isn't specialty focused would be Instagram, and if they are, I would say is YouTube. And with Instagram, you're looking for photos that are, just lots of photos of fashion, frames, that kind of thing. And definitely video as well, promotions and events. This practice right here, they have a buy one, get one sale that's going on. Those are the kinds of things that do really well on Instagram. Instagram is actually pretty good at converting to purchases for sales and promotions and flash sales and that kind of thing. An easy tool to use to do better job on Instagram is something called Canva. It's also a free tool, and they have a lot of Instagram templates that you can use. You can incorporate images, like if you look at the image in the middle, the 3 images in the middle row are all kind of taking 2 different images and overlaying them in different ways. That's could be, I don't know what they're using, but it could be using a tool like Canva to easily set that up. And so that's an easy way for a staff member who might not have Photoshop experience to create a lot of great imagery, great content using pictures of patients, pictures of staff, pictures of the frames that you have in a way that's going to be a little bit more effective. Another high-level idea when it comes to stage 4 social media, guru practice is called influence marketing. And the concept is pretty simple, which is that there are people out there in your community that have followers, that have people that they influence. This is a practice of mine that I manage still, Professional Vision Care, and they do co-marketing with a dermatology clinic and a dental clinic for local events. And that way they're leveraging each other's audience to start kind of engaging in a way that shares their audience. There's influencers that are just individuals in your community. Definitely mothers groups or community groups are a great influencer marketing platform. But there's definitely one theory when it comes to influencer marketing, which is in order to be effective at leveraging other people, you have to give something to them. You have to be valuable to them. So if you're going to join a mother's group and just post your own stuff on there without being a valuable member of the group, people aren't really going to respond too well. If you're a valuable member of that group and you're giving advice and ideas and sharing comments and liking other people's stuff, then you'll be much more likely to be effective at this strategy. A lot of practices are going to take the next step. We said before that Facebook's algorithm is very limiting at a local business level. But Facebook is really moving away from the idea of just letting businesses kind of put out as much content on people's Facebook feeds as possible for 2 reasons. One is because they don't want businesses to basically spam people. They want the experience to be good because that's what retains people on their platform. And the other thing is that they ultimately make money from businesses paying money for ads. So advertising on Facebook is not it's very clear that if you're not showing up once again for people who are looking for eye care, then you don't want to spend your money on Facebook ads. This is definitely an advanced, I always recommend practices to consider kind of, are there areas which you're just not doing well in terms, or you have potential in for people who are currently looking right now. So I always recommend that if you're going to spend money on ads, you start with Google Ads, PPC, pay-per-click, which is basically just making sure you show up for when people are looking for eye care. I would say you want to max that potential before you look at Facebook ads, just because those are highly qualified leads. They're looking for eye care today, and if you're at the top, that's going to help you get appointments at a lower cost. But Facebook ads are definitely the right fit and the right move for a practice that's at that level. And so one strategy when it comes to any advertising is that you definitely want to be pretty on top of your Facebook ad strategy or any advertising strategy, because ads can get out of hand when it comes to cost pretty fast unless you're doing a good job of overseeing what the performance. And so a great tip is to use your good organic content as an ad. If something that you posted has a lot of engagement, that's indicating that people like it, and that means that that ad will perform better. Facebook is pretty good. You can create a custom audience. You can target by age. You can target by interest. So you can say, I want to target women between the age of 30 and 35 that are interested in fashion, that are interested in outdoors, and I'm going to do that, and that's going to be my audience for this brand of sunglasses. Whenever you're creating an audience and an ad group, you can do it's really cool that you can really do what's called split testing, and it doesn't cost you any more. If you have a budget of $10 a day, you can split that to $5 and $5 and do 2 variations of it, and then see which one works better. And so that's pretty cool because you have your own inbuilt focus group within Facebook. You can save audiences so that the next time you come around, you don't need to sit there and build your audiences each time. You can target by location, by radius. The only thing when it comes to a Facebook audience or Facebook ads is that you will be limited if you target too much, because you do need to have an audience size that is big enough for Facebook to run ads to. Facebook advertising can take another level of kind of advanced marketing, which is retargeting to your existing patient base. And this is something that I think a lot of practices overlook because they think, they think that their patients aren't a source of growth for the business. But if the average patient reschedules every year and a half, and you can improve that a little bit, if the average patient is going to, if your retention of that patient over a 10-year period is only at 65% and you can improve that to 70%, all of these things can make a huge difference in terms of the bottom line of your business. And retargeting is a pretty effective way because you already have the email addresses. If you set up a Facebook pixel, which basically tracks anybody who comes to your site, you can retarget to those people. And so that's a great way of re-engaging people. If you could set up a list. So one of the cool things about setting up a targeted list based on emails is that you can start segmenting your list into interest categories or just a little bit more focused so that you're going to have better qualified leads. So what I mean by that is if you take all your patients and then you sort through by anyone who hasn't scheduled within the last year, it is over a year that they haven't scheduled. So you know that that person right now is really qualified for scheduling an eye exam. So creating ads that are ongoing for that person is going to be far more effective from a budget perspective than just creating ads to every single patient or creating ads to anybody who's ever visited your site or creating ads to just a broad audience within your community. Another way to kind of segment your list is if you have a list of people who have purchased high-end optical and then creating ads on an ongoing basis for flash sales, for invitation-only events, for trunk shows, once again that these are people who look at glasses maybe as a fashion piece, and just like a lot of people have multiple pairs of shoes, they might be interested in multiple pairs of glasses, and that's going to be a good category of people to target to. But you can do a lot of targeting within your own lists. You do need a list of around 1,000 emails to do targeting. The only thing that I would say is that you have to be careful not to do any targeting based on medical history, because then you run into HIPAA problems. So just a word of caution when it comes to retargeting.
Evan.
Yes.
Got us some good questions coming in for you about some of the stuff that you've been discussing, and I want to take just a quick second here. What can you talk a little bit about Facebook reviews? We have a question about whether they're worth paying attention to and how you should use that as a growth tool.
So that's a good question. My recommendation is always Google reviews because generally speaking, people aren't engaging in Facebook at the moment of their decision to make an eye exam. So this is about creating a brand identity, creating a source of engagement in the community, building your overall presence online, maybe with events and stuff like that, maybe educating patients. So I've been working on, let's say, a vision therapy campaign targeting mothers, but it's not about the point of decision. And so the point of decision is going to be Google in almost all cases, even if they've interacted with your Facebook page. And that's really where I would just direct every single person. And there's no limit when it comes to Google reviews in terms of what's good. I have a practice with 430, but I've also talked to a practice with 1,000 Google reviews. At the end of the day, it's what differentiates you from the other 2 practices that show up underneath the map when anybody's looking in your city. So my recommendation is always to just send everybody to Google reviews. That's going to be far more effective at convincing people that you're a good practice. That said, there's no harm in getting Facebook reviews. I just don't think that that's, obviously you want to have some, but I don't think that that's going to be primary focus for most practices. Sweetie, do you have other questions come in?
Yeah, and this one I think touches on basically the core of what we're discussing here, and that is, I'm a practice, and how often should I be playing the social media game? How often should I be posting? It's not necessarily specifically the frequency of individual posts, but how much time out of my total marketing time should I be putting into social media?
So I think that really comes down to looking at what stage you're at. If there are ways that you can grow your exposure when people are looking for eye care, then I always recommend you start there. Meaning, if you do a page on pink eye, that's going to get you patients. If you're doing a page on diabetic eye exams, I bet you do blog posts. Those are going to be when somebody's in your community is looking for certain things and they aren't seeing you right now. So those are going to be, all of those are potential angles and avenues to be there when people are looking. If you're doing a great job at that, then there's no end to what you can focus on. Marketing, I think in general, it's just the more you do, the better it is across everything, because the more you're a brand in your community, the more you engage in your community, the more active you are across the online space, the more effective you'll be. But I think for most practices, I would recommend a doctor spending their time doing videos for their website than doing social media, because that's going to be more effective usually to bring in patients. And then in a lot of cases, I would say would more fall on a staff member who likes doing it, who's interested in doing it, and empowering your staff to be more involved in your social media presence. Rarely do I see doctors like Dr. Belil that are so engaged in their social presence, but I think he enjoys it as well, and so that's kind of part of the equation as well. But there isn't really a one-step-fits-all, but the general rule is that if you're not doing the maximum of what you can accomplish when people are looking, so focus your attention there. If you are, then start talking about social, and start small on any marketing initiative and try to assess the effect. Right? If you see that it's having an impact on your practice, then that's amazing. One of the nice things about the practices that work with us is that we learn from every practice that we work with what is and isn't working. And so, Dr. Belil, you work with Alex, is that correct?
Yes.
So do you and Alex ever talk about your social strategy?
Yes, we speak. We have a phone call once a month.
And does he share kind of things that he learns from other practices, or do you guys strategize at all?
Yes. So he shares he feels like has worked well with the other accounts that he manages, and we try and tie together, what's going on in that particular month or season, and then also if he's building new content to my website, then we try and tie those things together. Like every month, he emails me a new blog post that they put on our website. So then I'll take that and I'll post a link to that on our Facebook page to try and keep the two connected as much as possible.
So, I think that part of social media strategy is going to be a little bit of learning what works either for your practice or for other practices just like yours.
Yes.
Svi, any more questions come in?
Well, we have a couple. One is if you need a HIPAA release for a Facebook review, and I'll send out basically an answer to that, but in short, no. But your responses need to be HIPAA compliant, so that's where you need to be careful. Let me see if I got something for you related to, okay. Okay, so someone is asking that they're a marketing coordinator and an optician, and how do you separate the two as a priority, or is that necessary?
That's a good question. I don't know. Tzvi, do you have an answer for that?
If we're talking about your social media presence, I think, it's one brand and you don't necessarily need to separate the two because it's all about engagement. You're not trying to get definable sales per, interaction with social media. It's very different than, dominating a local search result. So from the marketing side, you want to make sure that you're ranking well and drawing traffic that's turning into appointments, and those are sales opportunities. From the optical side, that's important, but you also want to engage with what you have to offer on a more social level, and that's where I think you'd use social media more, but that's not again on a sale to sale kind of level, if that makes sense.
So when we're talking about any social strategy, but specifically when we're talking about advertising on social media, there's Neil Schaefer, who's considered one of the leading experts in marketing on social for local businesses, for smaller businesses. He has a really amazing amazing approach to social media, and I think that if any of you want to kind of follow somebody who has great ideas, he'd be one of them. But he mentioned something, which is that sales on social media are not instant. Nothing happens the first interaction. A post doesn't generally, like Svi was just saying, social media is very different than search. Search is when somebody's looking for something, they want to schedule an eye exam, they have pink eye, they are interested in transition lenses, they're going to go to Google, they're going to look for it. That's the vast majority of appointments that happen, 90% plus. But on social, it's not about the instant result. It's about starting to build up multiple engagements over a long period of time that are going to start creating value over an extended period. And so Neil says that there are 10 to 20 touch points on social for a single sale, which means even on one topic, there are 10 to 20 touch points for a sale, meaning Dr. Belil's post on infancy would require around 10 to 20 posts about infancy for it to really be effective to really engage mothers. Now, I'm working on a vision therapy paid ads campaign for Dr. Nate from Bright Eyes in Tampa, Florida. And there, what we're doing is we're setting up ads that are basically, there are 4 different ways that we're going to convey the message. Within each way that we're conveying a message, we're creating different kinds of ads, different images or videos or patient testimonials. And the concept is that we want to engage a certain segment of the market, mothers of kids in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and we want to engage them over a 6-month period in a lot of different ways about one specific topic, which should result in them kind of going through the educational process, learning about it, and then eventually at some point making a decision, hey, maybe I should take my kid in for a developmental eye exam because reading is a lot more than just 20/20. That's kind of the concept when it comes to anything on social, is that it's not necessarily about the short term. And so I've heard it over and over again. Practice will say, well, I spent $500 on Facebook ads for a sale, and I didn't really see the results that I was hoping to get. And I would say that that's really not the way to use social ads. It's really about looking at the probability that over a long point of time that you're connecting with people in your community, you're creating this awareness about who you are, that you're going to start getting more growth for your business. And it's very important not to show the same advertisement over and over again. I bet you some of you have experienced that, where you go to a website and then afterwards this ad just follows you around everywhere you go. That's called retargeting. And oftentimes what you'll see is you actually get very annoyed at that brand. You no longer want to purchase that thing. That's called ad fatigue. And so if you are going to talk about, let's say, specialty care, or you want to start marketing a little bit more aggressively on Facebook through ads, so that has to be something that's brought into the picture, which is I want to do multiple touch points over an extended period of time with multiple different ways of talking to somebody about the topic. So once again, there are really 4 stages to social media. Obviously, every practice is going to be a little bit nuanced in here. And the concept is to take a step-by-step approach to anything you're doing in marketing, whether it's creating content on your site, whether it's about marketing internally in the practice, or whether it's about social media strategy. And it's taking one step at a time, making sure and verifying that what you're doing is effective and it's working. And so the first step is, once again, saying, I need to do social media. I need to be a little bit more out there. I need to get messaging out that's important, but I really can't afford to spend time and energy on it because I have other things that are more important when it comes to marketing. That's a lot of practices out there. The second step is really a practice that in most cases has a staff member that can get engaged into being more involved in social media, and that's document, don't create. Start creating great content. Start testing out different ways of creating content. Patient pictures, staff pictures, events, local community events, that kind of thing. The third way is expanding by doing some more technical stuff, doing more video, and tagging and that kind of thing, and starting to expand your audience. And then the last way is to look at other platforms and looking at paid ads as a way of really an influencer marketing. So thank you so much, Dr. Belil. Thank you, Roger, for having us. Any questions before Roger kind of wraps up the presentation?
I got a question coming in for you, and it's kind of a big one because it touches on a bunch of topics. So, how do we measure effectiveness of our effort? So I would say break that down. How do you measure effectiveness social media, and then how do you measure effectiveness sort of globally?
That's a very good question. ICAR Pro is really So it's very hard to measure the effectiveness of social media. That's the honest truth, because you're engaging them at a point of contact before that's directly related to an eye exam. And so that's why it has to be kind of put as a secondary, almost like, idea. One way is, you can look at just, the total kind of likes being added to your page and engagement into posts and stuff like that. But definitely you can use things like call tracking numbers. So that's one way of looking at it. Did this series of posts or this ad, did it result in any calls? Call tracking numbers are pretty simple to set up. They're very cheap to set up, and they're a good way to verify. Your Google Analytics will show you if people clicked from Facebook, but I'll tell you that they don't. People don't leave Facebook to schedule anything on a grand level. It very rarely happens. Practices that I've run, I've run tens of thousands of dollars of ads, and it just doesn't result in people clicking out of Facebook to schedule eye exams on a very frequent basis or in a meaningful ROI way. So that's not. It's much harder to judge the effect of it, and it's hard. Sri, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Social media is fundamentally about branding and community engagement and making sure you're in the back of people's mind. And it's hard to measure that. Whereas if someone's actively searching for an eye exam, it's easy to measure that and book that and say, okay, that's a conversion. We booked an appointment. And this is a lot more intangible, but very important still. Yeah.
Just before we say anything else, I just want to say, the only way maybe that would be different is if you really take a very high level approach to ads, like with this vision therapy ad that we're building. We definitely don't want to just spend money for no reason. So in that case, it's like if you have a really strong plan, which is very, very structured, very, very targeted market that you're going to reach out to on an ongoing basis, that you can kind of measure, because you can kind of see, if it's a specialty care topic, well, how many more vision therapy? It's not so hard for a practice to kind of see if that has an effect. Another thing would be if you're going to market for like a trunk show or an event, you might be able to kind of see how many people sign up for that event or trunk show. That would be kind of something that is maybe, or flash sale. Those are things that might do a little bit better at kind of measuring the effect of it. But for general care appointments, it's definitely not something that's very measurable for most practices.
All right, well, we have a tough question here. And person's asking, in terms of social content, some of your examples did seem pretty salesy in terms of doctor services and offerings. I was taught to be very soft sell on social. Where do you draw that line so that patients and prospects don't feel like they're being sold to when they're on your social pages? Or are we saying that they don't mind being sold to?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that question, actually. So first of all, I think that it's just, you can kind of gauge the effect of a post. Are people liking those posts? And if they are, then that's a good post. And if people aren't, then that's kind of salesy and not so good. And that's why I really kind of recommend that if a practice can do a better job on social, that they don't take that approach. They take more of a patient-centric, people-centric approach, very soft selling. I don't really love the concept of kind of pushing content on people. There's a Gary Vaynerchuk, another guru in the social world, and somebody I follow extensively. And if you want somebody to follow, that is definitely one of the people that's out there that's just amazing. And he's a great example of somebody who, if he can do it, anybody can, because he's inherently not likable. And I think he has 26 million followers. But he says that you got to respect the platform and respect why people are going there. And that's the only way. You have to create value for people. If people like comedy, they like cute babies, they like to engage in the people in their community, like they like to see the high school principal, that's going to be content that works on a social platform. If people go to Pinterest to see the latest fashion, so then that is something. Now, Pinterest is not so good for local businesses, but people go to Instagram more to kind of get an idea of fashion, so then that might be somewhere to focus. If people go to YouTube to learn more about solutions, so then that would be a better place to put content about specialty care. So you definitely have to have an approach of, I want to take a look, respect the platform. Now, the only caveat to that is, if you're not going to do anything, it's still better to have something on your Facebook page than nothing at all. So the only thing weaker than salesy content is to do no content.
That's a great time then to this next question, Evan, and it touches on, well, I'll just read it. Do you think it's important to change your content based on platform? For example, sometimes I'll share what I post on Instagram, on FB, and I guess the question is, where should we focus our effort with limited time?
Yeah, so you want to focus your effort on doing one platform well, learning what works on that platform before you extend to another platform. That's very, very simple. Unless you have somebody who in your staff who's really high level and they can take content and learn about each platform. Gary Vaynerchuk has this concept of basically taking one major piece of content and then cutting it up into different kinds of content for different platforms. Every platform has different reasons why people go there and different forms of content that's going to be effective. The length of a video on Facebook is going to be totally different than other platforms. The kind of imagery you need on Instagram is going to be different than the kind of imagery that's going to be effective on Facebook. The kind of stuff that you're putting on any platform has to respect that platform. I just think that it's very simple that you don't want to extend yourself out to other platforms before you do one well. And if you're going to do one well, usually that's going to be Facebook. Unless you're a specialty practice, then I would say definitely YouTube would be the place to go.
Okay, so we have another question that dovetails with that one nicely, and it's they run 3 different social media accounts, one for each specialty that they offer within their practice. Should they all be updated in the same day, or should they spread it out? And I'll add the question: does that make sense? Would it actually be better to have one social account for the practice entirely?
So I would recommend that you don't do social and you spend all your time doing lots and lots of videos and lots of content. Specialty care is much more effective when people, specialty care is much more focused on solutions to problems and having positioning the practice as a resource on a specific topic. It's not really a social community-based product. It's really a higher level of expertise and the fact that I can help you if you have Fuchs dystrophy and keratoconus and using video of the doctor to showcase that and leveraging that video across multiple different platforms and then creating content about that topic. So for specialty practice, I don't think specialties really fit so well into the social media paradigm. At least not, well, YouTube is a social paradigm, so I guess it does, but not so much on the traditional social paradigms. And I would definitely focus more of your attention on the website content that you have, just understanding that people are willing to travel much further and that very few people have pages on the 35 dystrophies that are conditions that people might look up for solutions that would be relevant to scleral lenses. And people don't have content specifically related to Down syndrome and cerebral palsy and autism when it comes to vision therapy. And just having information about it and just having a video about it that that can be used on YouTube and your website and transcribed into unique content is a far more effective way to use the time. And then I would say even beyond that, if you have more time, then I don't think I would spend time on Facebook or social either. Then I would look more within the world of referrals and working on that. And that is in a sense kind of influencer marketing, but just not influencer marketing on social media. So my recommendation, and that's kind of like an area where I definitely have a lot of experience, is that you're not going to get the ROI that you can get in other places for specialty care on social media. And definitely have practices that do put stuff on social for specialty care on an ongoing basis. But I recommend that you reconsider how to use the time and effort that you're currently spending on social media for your specialty care and thinking about maybe more effective solutions.
Fantastic. And what a great question. Someone's asking a pretty engaged question here about their GMB, and they're asking, how should my GMB be updated as frequently as Facebook?
Ooh, now we're talking about people who I like. Sorry. GMB is huge. I mean, anything you can do on your GMB is going to be massive. And this goes into, once again, the whole idea of if you're not maximizing your potential when people are looking for eye care, then you're really missing just a much bigger opportunity for new patient growth. The average practice GMB might be seen 5,000 to 6,000 times for what's called discovery searches. People looking for they're not looking for a doctor or a practice address or a practice name. They're just looking for stuff like eye exam near me or optometrist in my area or dry eye treatment or whatever. And so any activity you take on your Google My Business, whether it's adding pictures or photo or video, or whether it's adding a Google post or obviously reviews, responding to reviews, highly recommended. Do that as much as you can, as often as you can, for sure. Google's own calculation is based, 40% of the calculation for a local business is going to be based on your Google My Business listings alone. That's just 40% of who they decide to show up. So if you're going to do, if a practice wants to know what the one thing they should do is just, before you even talk about working with any marketing company and doing websites and content and all that, is that you should maximize your Google My Business with reviews, response to those reviews, posts, photos, information, questions and answers. Anything you do on your Google My Business is definitely going to be effective and worth it.
We have another question. She says that I don't want to necessarily capture new patients. I want to make my current patients aware of our media presence. How do we do that?
Yeah, so I think the document don't create strategy is really kind of the best way to do that, is just kind of like use your photos and videos of the practice, of your patients, of your staff, talk about stuff, have your opticians talk about stuff, have, video is a great way to communicate to people. If you're creating constant content like Dr. Belila is, where every day he's posting something, so people are going to see that, people are going to get engaged. If you're not looking for new patient growth, or you're not looking for specialty care growth, that is definitely very much within that stage 2 or stage 2, 3, where you're kind of going into pictures and video on social on a regular basis. If you have more time and you're looking, then just think about other platforms that your patients might not all be on Facebook. They might be on other platforms as well. And so then just kind of taking that content and expanding to other platforms, it definitely is a good, I think this presentation is definitely a helpful way to look at how, or the things that you can do to just reach your existing patients on an ongoing basis with content that they're going to find interesting and engaging and relevant to the platform that they're on.
Okay, awesome. Just seeing what else we have left. We're getting a lot of questions about getting the slides or viewing this later. Everyone should know that we will be sending out an email next week with information about how to view the video of this webinar. So not to worry, it will be available for anyone who wants it.
We're also going to be starting a Facebook group where in that email that you get, you can also you can join our Facebook group, and we're going to have weekly tips and downloads that you can use on your social media platforms. So just, iCare Pro taking a little bit of our own advice here, just kind of, being social with you guys. So welcome you to join our group that we're going to start from this webinar as kind of like a follow-up to the webinar. Okay, I think it's over to Roger, Zvi, or do we have any more questions?
I think that's it.
Okay, Roger.
Well, great. This is
you a happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, 35th. Congratulations on your youth. Why, we want to thank Dr. Belila for some great examples and wonderful illustrations of how he uses social media in building his practice, and want to also thank Evan and Zvi from iCare Pro. As was mentioned, in the next week, you'll get an email with the address for reviewing or recommending to a colleague the webinar itself, and where you can learn a great deal more and discuss that with your staff also. And finally, today's webinar, Social Media in Your Practice, will be archived on Review of Optometric Business and also on iCare Pro. As you see before you, there's a wealth of resources available on the site. So check that out. We want to thank you for your participation and great questions today, and we wish you a good day.